Hi, everybody. My name is Tina Louie. Welcome to Bookkeeping with Tina. Today, we're going to start a brand new company. We're going to start a landscaping company. It's going to be a totally fictitious company. What we're going to do in this series of lessons, we're going to set up a full scope company, very simple to begin with for the most basic user. Some people do not need all the varied features that QuickBooks has. Then as we progress, we're going to go back and we're going to add to our varied features. So I am using QuickBooks Accountant version 2014, which will be equivalent to your Premier version, except for the accountant tools. QuickBooks Pro works just fine. So let's open our QuickBooks. Let's go down to Create New Company. We're not going to use the Express Start today. We're going to use the Detailed Start instead. We're going to call this one Louie's Landscaping. Legal name, we're just gonna make it a DBA. We're gonna give it a fake tax ID number. Let's give it a mailing address. Let's give it a street address. I'm just gonna give mine 12981 any street in anywhere, Texas, in a fictitious zip code. Give it a phone number. Give it a fax if you have it. Give it your email address and your website if you have it. Then tell it next. Now we're going to scroll down our list of companies here to find something that will work for us. Design, architectural, engineering. Let's see. It's got to be something down here for landscaping. Lawn care and landscaping. Let's choose that one and tell it next. We're going to be a sole proprietorship, so choose that. Hit next. My physical year starts in January. Hit next. We're not going to give it a password today. So now we're going to hit next and we're going to create our company. We're going to save it someplace in your what I use my documents, and I make varied files inside my documents to save varied companies. That takes just a few minutes. Okay. Now we're coming to the customizing of QuickBooks. So let's hit next. Right now we're going to say that we have services only. Later on we'll go back and we'll add products. You know what? For now, let's go ahead and hit both services and products. Do you charge sales tax? Yes. Do you want to create estimates in QuickBooks? We'll tell it yes for right now. Tracking orders in QuickBooks. Do you track sales orders before you invoice your customers? We're going to tell it no for now. Using statements. Okay, just leave that at yes. We may or may not use statements. Using progress invoicing. We'll go ahead and leave that at yes. We probably won't use it. We will not use it for this beginning, but later on we may. Manage bills you owe. Yes. Track inventory in QuickBooks. Go ahead and tell it yes. Track time in QuickBooks. Make sure you tell that yes. Do you have employees? For now, we're going to say no. In a sample company that I am making, we don't have a payroll module. Later on, we will go through payroll, but we'll use one of the sample companies that QuickBooks provides. So tell it next. Just tell it next again. Beginning of this fiscal year is 1/1/14. Tell it next. What this does, when we chose our landscaping company, it gives us a sample chart of accounts that we can choose from. The little check mark means that you are accepting these chart of accounts. If it's not checked, it means that we are not. So let's go through. We have installation services for income, maintenance services for income. That's good. Equipment rental for jobs. Let's go ahead and check that just in case. Merchant account fees. Let's check that. Other job related costs. No, I don't like to use anything so simple like that. I like to have defined chart of accounts. Subcontracted services. Let's check that. Tools and small equipment. Let's check that. Well, no, let's uncheck that for cost of goods sold. We can uncheck workers' compensation insurance. No, let's leave that for right now. Let's uncheck it. We're not going to use that as a cost of goods sold right now. Advertising and promotions, yes. Auto and truck expenses. Let's uncheck that because we're going to change that. We're going to start out using our personal vehicle, and I'm going to show you how you need to keep all of those records, and then later on we'll purchase a vehicle. Bank service charges, business license and permits, check it. Charitable contributions, go ahead and check it. Computer and internet expenses, depreciation expense, dues and subscriptions, go ahead and check it. Insurance expense, just check that and let's leave out all the little sub accounts. Interest expense, janitorial expense. I never use a miscellaneous expense. I really don't like a miscellaneous expense. I mean, what is miscellaneous? It can always go in office, or there's always something else that we can put it in. And in my mind, this is just an audit flag using miscellaneous expense. Let's uncheck office supplies because I like to create mine. I like it to say office expense or office and postage. We'll go ahead and keep postage and delivery. Printing and reproduction, we'll take that. Professional fees, we'll keep that. Repairs and maintenance, property taxes, we're not going to take that. We have travel expenses. Let's uncheck that because I like mine to say travel and lodging, and then I like to have a separate one for meals and entertainment. And it's very important that you keep your meals and entertainment separate. Let's go on down here. Insurance proceeds received, interest income. Let's go ahead and take the interest income. Proceeds from sale of assets. Let's go ahead and take that. Okay. Well, let's tell it next. Let's tell it go to setup. Takes just a minute. See if I can move this around just a little bit for y'all. Here you can add the people you do business with, which are your customers. You can add the products and services you sell. You can add your bank accounts. Let's go ahead and add a bank account. Let's just call it, let's just say it's Wells Fargo. I like to put operating. And in case you're going to have several checking accounts, always like to put the last 4 digits of your account. It makes it a lot easier to reconcile if you have a whole bunch of them. So let's just put something in there. Tell it continue. Tell it no thanks. If you're going to order your checks and stuff, it's probably cheaper if you go to Office Depot or some other office and buy something that's QuickBooks compatible. And I do recommend that you print your checks. If you're very small and you have very few bills that you pay, it's okay to handwrite them. But you have to remember, if you handwrite them, you still have to data enter them into QuickBooks. So it's easier if you're paying a lot of bills to go ahead and print your checks. And go ahead, and it's okay to keep some handwritten checks and enter those. But if you're dealing with a whole lot of checks, if you print them, then the information's already inside QuickBooks, and you don't have to take the time to data enter it then. Hit continue. And let's just go ahead and tell it start working. Close all these little boxes as they come up. Now we're down to our home screen. Let me see if I can reduce QuickBooks in here. We are down to our home screen now. Go ahead and X out of this. Now your home screen is pretty neat. It gives you all the information. You can get directly to your check register. You can write checks from here. You can print checks. You can make deposits. You can do purchase orders, estimates, enter your time, credits and refunds. You can do everything from here. I don't use this a lot, but most people do. For now, let's X out of it. If you need that back, you go right over here to the left side ribbon. If your ribbon's not open, there's a little button right here on the side, a little arrow. Click that and just click on home and it brings it right back. So for now, let's close it. Let's go up to list and chart of accounts. Let's draw this a little bit bigger here. Here's our chart of accounts. So we have one checking account. We have our accumulated depreciation. We have our furniture and equipment. I don't like to have mine say furniture and equipment for fixed assets. So let's click on that, right click on it. You can either right click and choose edit, or you can go down to account, edit account. So let's edit it. Let's change this to furniture and fixtures. That's going to be our fixed asset for furniture and fixtures. We have one for landscaping equipment. That's fine. Or we can just edit that. We can just call this machinery and equipment. We don't have any vehicles right now, so we're not going to have that. We do have a sales tax payable, a liability account. We have our opening balance equity. Your opening balance equity is used. Suppose you already had a business in process when you decided to start it in QuickBooks. What you would do is use your opening balance equity when you enter your cash accounts, when you enter your receivables and your payables and things like that, to make sure that your QuickBooks balances, and then you would transfer that over to your retained earnings when you're done. But this should always be zero when you're done. You should always zero this account out. We have our owner's draw. We have our owner's equity. We have installation services, maintenance fees. Let's go down here where we had not used that one office supply. Let's go to account, new. Let's make this one an expense account and tell it continue. Let's make one for office expense. And tab over and just tell it save and close. We don't have one for meals and entertainment, so let's go down to account, new. Make it an expense account, tell it continue. And let's make one for meals and entertainment. Be very consistent on your chart of accounts. If Notice how printing and reproduction are, the P and the R are both capitalized. So when I do meals and entertainment, we want it to flow. So our financial statements will, well, we want them to look nice. We don't want them to look all junky. So let's be real careful about our chart of accounts. You don't want to have some all caps, some all lowercase. You want to keep it nice and neat. So let's save and close. Oh, we already do have a meals and entertainment. Let's see if we can find that there. Let's just cancel that one. There we go, right there. All right, I must be blind. All right, let's see. It was a travel that we did not take, so let's do account new, make it an expense, continue. Let's do travel and lodging until it's save and close. Now we have a pretty basic chart of accounts. We can expand on this later on. By the way, when you do estimates, notice that they are non-posting. Your estimates don't actually affect your chart of accounts. You have to roll that estimate over into an invoice. Let's click out of that. Let's go up to list, item list. Right now we have no items. The only thing we have is out-of-state sales tax, which is non-taxable. So let's go ahead right now and set up our sales tax. When you set up sales tax, you must always set up one for the state, for the city, for the county separately. If you have several cities and several counties, you set up each one of those rates separately. And then to use them on our invoices, we combine them into varied groups. So let's go to item, new. Let's make this one a sales tax item, not a sales tax group. Let's just call this one Texas State sales tax. I always like to be descriptive so when I'm running down this list, I can tell real fast what these items are. Let's give this one a 6%, 6.0, 6.0%. And let's see. Let's make it the Texas Comptroller for the tax agency. And this is the vendor that you're actually going to pay. Most of the time when you pay your sales tax, you're going to be paying them online. But there is a specific way that you must enter your sales tax and that you must pay them in QuickBooks. And we'll go over that later. So let's hit tab after we hit Texas Controller. Just tab over. It's going to tell us that the vendor is not found. Let's do a quick add. We did a quick add. because we're not going to be concerned about the address or anything of this agency because we're going to pay them online. If we weren't going to pay them online, we would have done the full setup. We would have entered our account number in there. Maybe we would have entered their complete mailing address at the very least. Let's tell it okay. So now we have our Texas state sales tax. Let's do another item, new, make it a sales tax item. And let's say this is let's just call it San Antonio. And that's not where I live, by the way. City tax. Let's just say this is 2%. And it's still going to be Texas Comptroller. Tab over and tell it okay. So now we have two sales tax items. Let's make a third. New. Let's make this one a sales tax item. And let's just call this one Bexar County. Let's give this a rate of 1% and make it the same thing for the Texas Comptroller and tell it okay. Okay. If you'll grab this little line right up here and hold it and pull it over, you can pull it over and see all of this now. The type account is a sales tax item. This lists your rates. Now, if you're a landscaping company, you may actually work in varied counties. So maybe you would need to make another item for county so and so or county, maybe 5 different counties. It's hard to say. Maybe combined with several cities. But for your invoices, you need to remember your invoice can only pick up one item. But whenever you enter your sales and you make your groups, it's going to break it down for you. And I'm going to explain this for you better. So for right now, just know that you must make an item for every entity. So now we're going to go into item, new. We're going to make this one a sales tax group. And we're going to call it Texas San Antonio. And we're going to say, okay, for some of these, we're in San Antonio. And we also have to pay Bexar County for an area of San Antonio. So we have to pay Texas sales tax, San Antonio City sales tax, and Bexar County sales tax. And I like to name them again so when I look at them in my item list here, everything's very clear. We're going to tab down. I'm just going to say Texas. All right, we tab down again, and this is where we're going to choose the sales tax items that are going to be part of this particular group. So we chose the Texas sales tax, then we need the San Antonio city tax, and we need the Bexar County sales tax, and we'll tell it okay. That comes up for spelling, just close it. Now let's make one more sales tax group. Let's go item, new. Let's make this a sales tax group. Let's name this one Texas, and then Bexar County. It's possible at times that maybe we'll do work just in Bexar County, outside the city limits of the city, but still in the county. So all that we will legally need to collect is the Texas sales tax and the county sales tax. So for that, we'll go in and we'll choose the Texas sales tax, and we'll choose the Bexar County sales tax. And down here, this gives us our total rate for that. And we'll tell it close. Now, whenever you have a customer, let's go up to customers here just so you can see. Let's go up to customers, customer center. We don't have a customer right now. Let's make our first customer. Let's go to new customer and job. Select new customer. Let's call this one, let's just make it John Doe. Let's make it John Doe Company. Let's do that. That's even better. Let's go down here and give our John Doe Company an address. Call it 1297 someplace street. in San Antonio. Now we're going to say that this address is in the county and not really in the city. It's not inside the city limits. They just happen to have a San Antonio mailing address. We would include a phone number, a work phone number. We would definitely want to include an email address. So let's just call it John Doe at company.net. Of course, that's a fake email address. Let's go down to payment settings. Here, these are our customers. These are the payment terms that we are extending to them. Is it due on receipt? Is it net 30? Let's say that this one is net 30. Let's make it net 15. Preferred delivery method for the invoices. Let's say their preferred delivery method. It can either be mail or email. Let's say it's email. We can include their preferred payment method if we like, but we don't have to. If we want to give them a credit limit, we can do it here. Price levels, we will discuss it another later on in this series or another series. Let's go down to our sales tax setting. Now, we don't have to set our customers with a specific sales tax setting. Well, actually, we do. Okay, actually, we do. We at least need to say whether they're taxable. What is your sales tax item? Okay, it's better if you set every customer with one. That way, your invoices are automated. So do make a point of doing that. If they're non-taxable, up here we would go in and we would add a new and we would say non-taxable, which means that they're out of state or for some reason they're non-taxable. And just tell it okay. So we already have one, so let's cancel it. So let's say it's taxable. Let's change this out of state because they're not out of state and they're not inside San Antonio city limits. We want to make sure in these things that we use a sales tax group, not an individual item. So we're going to say for this particular customer, we're going to collect the Texas sales tax and the Bexar County sales tax only. We're going to put their if for some reason they are non-taxable or out of state, we're going to put their resale tax ID here. We can go down to additional info and we can actually give this a customer type. We can say that they're retail, referral, wholesale from advertisement, or we could type in our own and just do a quick ad. We'll say that they're commercial. If we have a sales rep, we could add that here. We can go down to the job info. Right now, we're not going to get into jobs. We will get into jobs as we progress. We're going to keep it very simple to start. So tell it okay. Let's make one more customer. Let's go to new customer. Make a new customer. Let's just make this one Acme Company. Again, we want to fill out their phone number. We want to fill out their email address. We want to give them a good street address. Give it a zip code. And these are all fictitious, so you can put anything you want to there. If you want to put a note about the customer, you can put it right there. If we have an account number, we'd want to put that here. Payment terms, let's make them due on receipt. Preferred delivery method, let's make them email also. We'll skip the payment method. Let's go down to the sales tax setting. On this one, we're going to make them taxable, and we're going to say that they are inside the city limits. So we need to go down to our sales tax group. We want to get the one for Texas, San Antonio, and Bexar County. Here, we can give them another commercial, or we can make them residential if we wanted to. Let's just make them commercial. We're not going to have a separate job again. Let's pull this up now, and let's tell it okay. So now we have two customers. Let's click out of this and close it. Back to our items list. Now you have a general idea of how to set up your sales tax. So let's progress. Now, in order to bill them or invoice them, we're going to have some service items set up. So let's go to Item, New. Let's make this one a service item. Let's call this one Design. What I like to do to keep it very neat, and we'll go back and do this with our sales tax, I like to make it a sub-item of service items, because when this list gets really long, it gets really hard to keep up with things. So I like to have mine really neat. So let's make it a sub-item of sales items and tab over. It's going to tell us that we don't have a service items. We're going to set it up. We're going to make it service. We're going to call it service items. Service items, let's just change that to master. That way we're not tempted to use it by mistake. We're going to leave everything blank. Well, it's going to force us to put an income account in here. Oh, let's make another one. Let's call it design. No, let's just make it, uh, let's just make this design income. Click next, set up the account, make sure it's in type income account up here, and just tell it save and close. Then let's go back over here. You know what? Let's just leave that to service items. And let's just tell this okay. So now we have a design as a sub account of service items master. We have several choices here. We can give it a rate. This is our hourly rate for design. If we wanted to do that, let's just say it's $75 an hour for design. And we're going to say that that is non-taxable. And we're going to put this to design income. Now, if we left this blank, there's different things that we can set up for our varied employees if we have them, or even for ourselves. Right now, let's give this one a rate. Like I said, to begin with, we're going to make this a very simple set of books. And as we progress, we'll add some more of the more complicated features. We actually could, if we wanted to have expenses off of this. Suppose I want to bill my time, or I had an employee, and I wanted to actually be able to record them to a job cost. We could enable units of measure. If you have units of measure, tell it next for item, a single unit of measure. Click next. Time, minutes or hours for our service. Let's make this hour until it finish. Okay, this right down here it says this service is used in assemblies or is performed by a subcontractor or partner. If this was going to be performed by a subcontractor and you were going to bill your customer for that, or even if you just wanted to keep rate of your job costing, you would want to click this, and you would want to go ahead, leave the cost blank, because the cost will actually be determined by your invoices from your subcontractors or by other items. Now, we'll go over more in detail things like this also later on. So let's just look at our expense account. Let's see what we have here, because this would be if we're going to use subcontractors, this would be a direct cost of goods sold. Let's just say it's subcontracted services. We're going to work on that. We can give it a preferred vendor or not. Let's tell it okay. Let's right click on this again. Since we made that subcontractor, let's call it design subcontract in case, and let's tell that one okay. Let's make another one under item, new. Make it a service item also, and let's call this one design owner. Let's go ahead and make it a subcontract or a sub item of service items master. Give it a unit of measure of hour. And you can actually add your description here. And these descriptions will print out on the invoice, but you can change them at any time. Let's give it the same rate of $75 an hour. Let's put it to design income. I think we made the other one non-taxable. Let's make this one taxable. Let's go ahead and choose this one because what because we want to keep we want to be able to cost everything to the job. We may or may not use his expense side. You know what? For now, for the owners, let's go ahead and click on it. Let's go ahead and bring it down and see what we have as cost of goods sold. And let's, you know what? For now, we're not going to choose that one for the owner. I like for you to have one with and one without. So let's just tell it okay. Our rate is there, and let's tell it okay. See how neat that looks under service items? Design just falls underneath there. Let's go ahead and add a few more items. Let, let's make this one a service item. Let's call it installation. And for subcontractors. And your items are up to you, totally up to you how you make them. But a lot of it's going to depend on how detailed that you want to be. Let's let's make this one also a sub item of service items. Let's give it an hour. Let's give it a rate of, let's say, $50 an hour for installation. Let's make it $100 an hour for installation. Let's make it taxable. Let's use installation services for income account. And let's just type here installation. Since it's going to be for subs, let's go ahead and put our expense account as cost of goods sold, subcontracted services, and tell it okay. So now we have a couple of income items. Let's click on this one again, the design for sub. Let's edit it. Let's go down here in our description and let's put design, just to keep it real consistent. So now we have some service items. These are the items that we will actually use to invoice from. Let's go ahead and add a new item. Let's make this one an other charge. And let's just put shipping and handling. Let's go ahead and check this. This item is used in assemblies or as a reimbursable charge. We're going to leave the cost blank. And we're going to type in postage and delivery. Or we can also change that to shipping and handling. I don't believe we have a shipping and handling. Now let's just use postage and delivery. We can always change the name of that account later. We're going to make it taxable. And let's go up here and see what we have for income accounts. If you'll click on this and then grab the little sidebar that pops up, all we have is design income, installation services, and maintenance services. Let's do one for reimbursement income. Type that and tab over. Click setup. Make sure it's a account type income. Then click save. Let's go ahead and close that. Let's go ahead and click on this again, or income, or shipping. Let's edit the item. And because we want to be sure to keep all these things really neat, let's make it a sub item of other charges. Let's tab over and tell it yes to set up a new one. Make this one also in other charges. Let's just call it other charges master. And leave it's going to force us to pick an income, so we're going to use reimbursement income again and tell it okay. And then we're going to tell this one okay. See how neat that looks? Let's go ahead and make one for our sales tax also. Let's go item, new item. Let's make this a sales tax group. And let's just call it sales tax group and see if it will let us do this. An S for plural. Okay, it's not going to let me group that without picking all these out, so we're going to tell that cancel. Our sales tax will be the only things that are going to be kind of loose wires here, but we can always sort this by service type. We can sort by description. We can sort by item name. We can sort by account type. We can sort by price. I usually keep mine sorted by account type, and I still like to have the little master accounts here because as we grow, it'll make this a lot easier. You may decide at some point to add products, to add an inventory and sell products. So for now, let's get out of this and let's get started. Bearing in mind that we're going to keep our books very simple right now, we're going to go into our banking, write checks. We're going to assume that we don't actually order our supplies right now, that we go down to the local do-it-yourself store and we take a check with us and we pay for these supplies as we go. We will get into the accounts payable, how to handle your invoices that come in, and actually paying items through accounts payable in another lesson. For now, we're going to banking, write checks. Let's make this one to Home Depot. We don't have the vendor. Let's just give it a quick add. Make sure it's a vendor and tell it yes. Right now, we're going to mess with our jobs just a little bit here. Let's go into, we can either go into our expenses or we can go into items. Right now, we don't have any non-inventory items set up. If we were going to buy in bulk to use on several jobs, we would want to. But right now, let's just say we've been hired for one job. So we have gone out and we have bought plants. We bought plants. We bought a little bit of lumber. We bought concrete things, whatever we need to do a nice little landscape set. So let's go in here and let's open our little account. Let's just see what we have up here in cost of goods sold. Let's put it in materials cost. Everything we buy today for this particular job is going to be materials cost. Let's say that we spent $2,000. We can put a memo here of any kind. Let's go over here to our customer jobs because we do want to track these. Let's go ahead and put this to Acme Company. Do we want to make this billable? Do we want to bill our customer for this $2,000, or are we going to have just a flat fee? Have we gone out and have we gone out and we assessed it and we quoted them a $6,000 fee? Now this depends. If we want to bill them for this for materials and then we want to add labor to it and bill them that way, then we would want to make this billable. Right now, we're going to assume that we have quoted them a flat rate and that we are assuming the cost of materials is part of that. So we're going to uncheck billable, but we're going to leave it to the customer because we want this cost to be applied to that customer on our job cost reports. We're going to unclick print later and we're going to give it a check. Let's just start with a series of 1,000. Let's just say on 10/2, which is today's date, we went to Home Depot. We spent $2,000 for material cost for a job for Acme Company. Let's tell it save and close. Okay, let's assume that we've gone out there and we've done the work. And let's just say this time that we had a subcontractor help us. Let's go back into banking, write checks, keeping in mind that we're going to keep this very simple this time. We're going to go in and we're going to look for our John Doe. We're going to look for our vendor. So we need to set up a vendor. Who did we have help us today? Let's say we had Pelkin Company. Or let's just say John Pelkin. We're going to tab over and it's going to tell us that this vendor is not set up. This time we want to go to actual setup because since he is a subcontractor for us, we're going to have to send him a 1099 at the end of the year. Make sure the account type is vendor and tell it okay. If he is a company, you want to put his company name here. Even if he has a company that's a DBA, you would want to put his company name here. Like for me, it would be Tina Louie. Then this would be a bookkeeper online. But when you 1099 me, it would be Tina Louie, DBA, a bookkeeper online. We're going to assume that it's just him. So we're going to put his name here again, John Pelkin. We're going to put his phone number. We're going to put his name here and his name here. We're always going to fill out phone numbers. The more information you can have for them here, the better you're going to be. We're actually going to fill out his email address also. Let's just make it jp@pelkin.com. We're going to give him a P.O. box 999. We're going to hit enter. Just call it San Antonio, Texas, and give it a fictitious zip code. We're going to go down to the payment settings, payment terms. Do we pay him due on receipt? Let's say he is net 15. Let's just say he's due on receipt. He does a job and we pay him when the job is done. Print name on check. We want the name to print as John Pelkin. Tax setting. Here, if he doesn't have an EIN number, if he has a Social Security number, we're going to want to put it here. Notice this is grayed out. Vendor eligible for 1099s. It's not checked. Let's tell this okay for right now. We'll get back to him. Let's go over here to edit. Let's go down to our preferences. Let's go all the way down here to tax 1099, to company preferences. Do you file forms 1099? Click yes and tell it okay. Let's go back up here to vendors, our vendor center. Let's get back into John Pelkin. Let's go back down to our tax settings now. So we put his Social Security number in if he's an individual. We put his EIN number in if he's a company. And we must click that he is eligible for 1099s. On the account settings, let's go ahead and put him up to cost of goods sold because he's directly related to our job cost. So let's put it to subcontracted services. Let's go down to additional information. We could give him a vendor type. He could be a supplier. He could be a service provider. Let's put him down as a service provider and let's tell it okay. Let's close out the vendor center and back in our check here. Let's go ahead and expense this to subcontracted services. Let's say he's going to charge us $1,500. And we're going to go ahead and make sure that we put this to Acme Company. We're going to unclick billable. We're not going to bill Acme Company directly for his services because remember we have quoted them a flat fee. So let's go in and save and close. So now we're going to go up to our customers. We're going to go up to our customer center. We're going to go into Acme Company and double click on it. Just close it out. We're going to go into customers, create invoices. Up here under our template, we have an Intuit product invoice. Let's change that and let's make it an Intuit service invoice. Make sure we've chosen Acme Company. Let's make this 10-5-14. Let's start out with a series of 1,000 of our invoice numbers. We have our bill to address. If we had a PO, it would go here. Our terms for them is due and receipt. Here, when we invoice them, we're going to invoice them for design, for installation, or for subcontracted. We're going to go ahead and let's just invoice them. You know what? Let's make another one. Package design. We're going to call it design package. Let's tell it yes, we want to set up a new item. It's a service item. We're going to make it a sub item of service items master. We're just going to call it each. And finish. And we're going to call this design services as agreed. We're not going to give it a rate because this is obviously going to differ from job to job. We'll make it to design income, or we can make a new income account for that if we wanted to. We're going to go ahead and use design income. Tell it okay. So now we have our service items master. design package, the service items we set up. Notice that our description feeds right over here. Our unit of measure, we just had each. So we have to decide what, let's just say we decided or we quoted them a price of $6,000. You're changing your standard price, just click OK on that. It's taxable. Notice when we set up this customer, we set them up for the Texas San Antonio Bexar County tax. So they are taxable. It adds the tax right here, $540 on tax. So our invoice totals $6,540. What we would normally do, we would unclick print later. We could either leave email later clicked, or we could unclick it and we could go ahead and email that directly right here. We could hit email or we could hit print. Let's just say that we emailed it. We're not going to email it actually because we have a fictitious email address. But let's say that we emailed it. It's already been done. We've unchecked all of that. We're going to come down here and save and close. So now we're going to click out of our customer. Let's just say that our customer has paid us now. We got a check. We sent him the email. He paid us by check. Let's go into customers, receive payments. Before we do that, let's close out of that. Let's go back into our edit preferences. I want to change something here under customers and receivables. Let's go back into our accounting. I'm looking for jobs and estimates is not in there. I want to make sure that we have the option to choose our checking account directly or to go to undeposited funds. Under payments, right here you see that it's use undeposited funds as a default deposit account is checked. Let's uncheck that because if we leave that checked, every time we try to make a deposit, it's going to force it to undeposited funds. Undeposited funds is suppose you got 5 checks in today. You would and you received them all. You would put those into undeposited funds and then you would make a deposit from undeposited funds so it exactly matched the deposit slip. But we're going to assume that so go ahead and hit that and tell it okay. Let's go back into customers, receive payments. We're going to go in up here. We received it from Acme Company. Let's say we received $6,540. And let's make the date 10/7. Boy, they paid fast. And let's type check and let's give it a check number 2289. Check number they paid us with. Up here where it says deposited to, today we're going to consider that this check was one check received in the mail and we took it directly to the bank. So this $6,540 matches our deposit slip exactly. So we're going to change that from undeposited funds directly over to Wells Fargo operating account. And we're going to save and close. Now let's go up to our list chart of accounts. Let's click on Wells Fargo. There's our check to Home Depot. There's our check to John Pelican. There's our invoice payment from Acme. There's our total in the bank right now is $3,040. Let's close that. Let's go up to reports. Let's go down to jobs, time, and materials. Let's look at a job profitability summary. Let's run that from 01/01/14 to 12/31/14. Notice under Acme Company now, we have our actual cost. If we click on that, that includes our check for materials cost to Home Depot and the one that we paid John. Let's close that. It also shows our revenue. We double click on that. That is our invoice to Acme. And we close that out. It will show us our actual cost, our actual revenue, and the difference. The difference is a profit that we made, or the loss if we actually had a loss. It would be negative then. That's your job profitability summary report. And if you're very careful, Whenever you write these individual checks, to always choose your customer or your job, then that will be in your report. If we had checked billable, we would have invoiced this in a totally different way, and we will do one of those in our next lesson. That sums it up for today.